Under a gray, heavy sky in the small town, a young woman opens her door and finds a frail old man tapping a chipped bowl against her gate, too ashamed to ask for food. Moved by pity, she feeds him every night, enduring the cruel whispers of her neighbors. What she doesn't know is that this beggar is the abandoned father of a billionaire. Then one day, a luxury SUV stops on the street. A man in an expensive suit steps out, and the moment he sees the old man holding that bowl, his entire world shatters. Before we continue, tell us what time it is and where you're watching from. Subscribe and hype, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The town of Riverside Haven sat quiet under a gray November sky. The storefronts along Main Street wore peeling paint like old scars. Half the shops had gone dark years ago, their windows covered with plywood and faded for lease signs. Elena Brooks stood on the crooked porch of the small house she shared with her mother, wringing out a dishcloth over a bucket. She was 20 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and eyes that held more worry than any 20-year-old should carry. Inside, her mother coughed, that deep rattling cough that had been getting worse all winter. Elena closed her eyes and squeezed the cloth tighter. "Elena, honey, did you remember to save some beans for tomorrow?" her mother called weakly. "Yes, Mama. Don't worry. They'd had beans for dinner. Beans yesterday. Beans the day before." She'd learned to make a single can stretch across 3 meals. Every crumb mattered, but even with so little, Elena couldn't walk past someone who had less. When old Mrs. Patterson couldn't afford her medicine, Elena had quietly slipped $20 under her door. When the Henderson kids showed up at school with empty lunchboxes, Elena packed extra sandwiches. Her mother worried. "You can't save the whole town, baby." Elena knew that, but she also knew what it felt like to be desperate. The afternoon light was fading when Elena heard it, a soft metallic tapping sound. Clang, clang. She turned toward the front gate. An old man stood there, bent almost double, one gnarled hand gripping the fence post for support. In his other hand, he held a dented tin bowl. He tapped it gently against the gate. Elena's breath caught. She knew this man. Everyone in Riverside Haven knew Samuel Hartman, but the Samuel she remembered from childhood had been different. Tall, strong. He'd had a workshop where he fixed things. She remembered being 6 years old, watching him repair her mother's music box. He'd smiled and said, "Nothing's too broken to fix, little one." The man at her gate looked nothing like that memory. This Samuel was shrunken, his shoulders curved inward, his jacket hung loose on a frame that had lost too much weight. His hands trembled as they held the bowl, but it was his eyes that broke Elena's heart, the same kind blue but now filled with shame. "Mr. Hartman." Elena's voice came out soft. He looked up, straightening slightly. "Evening, Miss Elena. I'm sorry to trouble you. I was wondering if you might have any—" He couldn't finish. Elena remembered other things now. Samuel at town picnics, always with a boy by his side. A young boy who'd called him Pa. Where was that boy now? "Mr. Hartman, please. Come on up. I've got soup on the stove." "Oh, I couldn't, you're not imposing, please." She took his arm gently, feeling how thin it was. "Come sit on the porch." Samuel let himself be led up the steps. When he settled into the rocking chair, he closed his eyes briefly, as if even sitting down brought relief. Elena hurried inside and ladled a full bowl of soup, more than half of what remained. She grabbed the last 2 pieces of cornbread and carried them outside. When Samuel saw the bowl, his eyes grew bright with moisture. "Miss Elena, this is too much." "It's not too much. Please eat." He picked up the spoon with shaking hands and brought it to his lips. The way he savored it made Elena want to cry. From the street she heard voices. 2 men walking by. "Well, look at that. Old Hartman's begging at the Brooks place now. Shame, ain't it? Man raises a boy like his own son. And where's that boy now? Living in some fancy penthouse in New York, I heard. Made himself a billionaire. Billionaire. And his old man's out here with a tin bowl." Elena felt anger rise hot in her chest. She started to stand, but Samuel's voice stopped her. "Don't, Miss Elena. They're not wrong. They are wrong. They know enough." Samuel set the spoon down gently. "Nate's a good boy. He's just busy. I'm proud of him. When did you last hear from him, Mr. Hartman?" Samuel was quiet for a long moment. 8 years ago. He called from the bus station, said he'd found an opportunity, said he'd send money soon. Samuel's hands tightened around the bowl. I told him not to worry about me, told him to chase his dreams, but Mr. Hartman, he'll come back when he's ready, so he can come home proud. Elena's throat felt tight. She saw the way Samuel held on to hope like it was the only thing keeping him upright. She made a decision. Mr. Hartman, I want you to come back tomorrow evening. Same time, I'll have dinner ready. He looked up, startled. Oh, I couldn't ask. You're not asking, I'm offering. And the day after that, and the day after that. Samuel's face crumpled slightly. Why would you do that? Because I remember you fixing my mother's music box when we couldn't pay. I remember you bringing us vegetables after my father died. I remember. She paused. Now it's my turn. Samuel looked down at the empty bowl. I used to be the one helping folks. I know. They sat in silence as the last light faded. Finally Samuel stood, handing back the bowl and plate with both hands. Thank you, Miss Elena. You've got your father's heart. Tomorrow evening, Mr. Hartman. Promise me you'll come. He nodded slowly. I promise. Elena watched him make his way down the path. At the gate he turned back. Nate used to love your cornbread. I'd make it for him every Sunday. He'd eat half the pan before it even cooled. Then he was gone. Elena stood on the porch, holding the empty bowl, and felt something settle in her chest. Samuel Hartman wouldn't beg anymore. Not if she could help it. Inside her mother called out. You gave him the soup for tomorrow, didn't you? Yes, Mama. We'll manage. We always do. That night, Elena stood at her window and looked out at Riverside Haven. The town looked tired, forgotten, but somewhere out there, Samuel Hartman was going to sleep with a full stomach tonight. It wasn't much, but it was something. And sometimes, Elena thought, something was enough to keep hoping. She whispered into the darkness, "Where are you, Nate Hartman? And what kind of success is worth this?" The night gave no answer. The next evening came cold and gray. Elena stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of chicken stew. Her mother sat at the table, watching. You're making enough for 4 people, she observed. Mr. Hartman needs more than one bowl, Mama. Look at him. At exactly 6 o'clock, Elena heard the gentle tap of metal on wood. Samuel stood at the bottom of the porch steps, still holding that tin bowl. When he saw Elena, he started to raise it, then stopped himself, lowering it slowly. His face colored with embarrassment. Evening, Miss Elena. Evening, Mr. Hartman. Come on up. She handed him the bowl once he was settled. Steam rose from it, carrying the rich smell of chicken and vegetables. Samuel stared at it. Miss Elena, this is real food. Of course it's real food. Most folks, when they give anything at all, it's leftovers. Scraps. He looked up at her. You made this fresh. You made this with care. You deserve fresh food, Mr. Hartman. He ate slowly, savoring each bite. Between mouthfuls he would pause and close his eyes. My wife used to make stew like this, he said after a while. Margaret, Nate would come running in from the yard, all covered in dirt. Elena heard the shift in his voice from present to past. Your wife passed, 12 years ago. Cancer. Nate was just 10. That's when I officially adopted him. He smiled sadly. Hartman. Margaret chose that name, said it suited me. How did you meet Nate? Found him behind the dumpster at the general store, maybe 7 years old, skinny, scared. Nobody wanted him. Samuel's voice grew thick. Margaret and I couldn't have children. When I saw that boy, I knelt down and said, "Hey there, son, you hungry?" And he just nodded. He took another bite. I brought him home. Margaret took one look and started crying. Happy tears. We put him in the spare bedroom, and she said, "He's ours now." Did he want to be? Took him 3 days to talk to us, but one morning, he came to my workshop and said, "Can I help?" And I said, "Sure thing, son." And he said, "My name's Nate," and that was that. You gave him everything. We gave him love. When Margaret got sick, Nate was 13. He'd sit by her bed every night, reading to her. On her last day she squeezed his hand when he promised to make her proud. Samuel finished the stew. After she died, that boy threw himself into his studies. Straight A's, awards, He was trying to keep that promise. He must have loved you very much. I thought he did. Samuel's smile faltered. He was so smart, won every award. Teachers said he could do anything. I sold Margaret's piano to pay for his college applications, got accepted with a full scholarship. When did he leave? 8 years ago. Packed one bag, kissed me on the cheek and said, "I'll make you proud, Pa." Samuel's voice dropped. That was the last time I saw him. 8 years, no visits. One phone call, maybe 6 months after. Said he'd found a job. Said he'd send money soon. He looked at his hands. I told him not to worry. I had my workshop, but it closed 2 years ago. My hands, he held them up, showing the tremor. Couldn't hold tools steady anymore. Elena felt anger rising. "Mr. Hartman, have you tried to contact him? I don't know where he is. Heard he'd made it big. Someone saw him in a magazine." Samuel's voice held no bitterness. "I'm proud of him. He did what I told him, made something of himself. At what cost? Sometimes children gotta leave to find themselves. He'll come back when he's ready. When he feels like he's accomplished enough." Samuel nodded. "He's probably embarrassed about not staying in touch. When he's ready he'll come home." Elena wanted to scream, wanted to make him see that Nate wasn't coming back, but hope was all Samuel had left. "Same time tomorrow, Mr. Hartman." "Miss Elena, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." After Samuel left, Elena's mother spoke from the kitchen. "He told you about Nate?" "Yes." "And you're angry?" Elena set the bowl in the sink harder than she meant. "Shouldn't I be?" "Yes, but don't let Samuel see it. That anger is yours to carry, not his." That night, lying in bed, Elena couldn't stop thinking about Samuel's words. "He'll come back when he's ready." What if he never gets ready? She thought. She made a silent promise. Samuel Hartman would not spend this winter hungry. Whatever it took, she'd learned what it meant to help people. And she'd learned from Samuel himself, from a man who'd fixed broken things because he cared. "Nothing's too broken to fix," he told her. But as sleep found her, Elena wondered, what about a forgotten father? What about a heart that had been left behind? 3 weeks passed. November turned colder, frost coating Riverside Haven in thin ice. Every evening at 6 o'clock, Samuel climbed Elena's porch steps, and every evening, she had a meal waiting. Elena picked up extra shifts at the diner, started walking to work, cut her own hair, found 100 small ways to stretch every dollar. And every evening Samuel ate. He was still too thin, but Elena noticed changes. The tremor in his hands seemed better. He climbed the steps with less pain. Once she heard him humming. But the town noticed too. "Elena Brooks is wasting her time," Mrs. Chen said loudly at the grocery store. "Her family's barely scraping by." "Charity starts at home," Mr. Peterson agreed. "She should be taking care of her sick mother." Elena heard it everywhere. But she didn't stop. One evening, as Samuel ate beef stew, Elena asked a question that had been building inside her. "Mr. Hartman, why did you sell the cow?" He looked up, surprised. "What's that?" "Your cow, the big brown one. You used to sell milk to everyone. What happened to her?" Samuel set his spoon down slowly. "Bessie, that was her name." "What happened to Bessie?" Nate was 14. The high school had a special science program, gifted students. But there was a fee. $800. He paused. "I didn't have it. But Bessie was worth about 1,000. You sold her." "Sold her to a farmer 3 towns over. Came home with the cash." Nate asked where Bessie was. "I said I'd found her a better home." Samuel picked up his spoon. But he was smart. I think he figured it out. Stopped drinking milk for a while. And he left anyway. He left because I told him to. I said, "Nate, you got a gift. Don't waste it on this dying town. Don't look back." He paused. "I meant it. I wanted him to fly." "But Mr. Hartman, what good is a cow compared to a boy's future?" He met her eyes. "I'd sell Bessie again, because that's what love is, putting someone else's dreams before your own comfort." They sat in silence. Then Samuel shared more stories, about Nate taking apart radios, about teaching him to fish, about Nate staying up all night to help fix the roof. Then the stories turned darker, about Margaret dying, about Nate promising to make their family name mean something, about throwing himself into his studies. The day he left he said, "Pa, I'm going to make so much money, you'll never have to work again. Samuel's smile was weak. I told him I just needed him to be happy. Mr. Hartman, he meant it when he said it. Samuel gripped the bowl. Something must have happened. The city does that sometimes, makes people forget. After he left, Elena's mother came to stand beside her at the window, watching Samuel's slow progress down the dark street. You can't save him from his son's choices, her mother said. I know, but I have to try. The gossip grew louder. That Brooks girl is crazy, thinks she can fix everything. Her mother's sick, and she's wasting food. But Elena didn't stop. Every evening she cooked. Every evening Samuel came. And every evening he shared stories about the brilliant boy who'd promised to change the world. The boy who'd left and never came back. On a cold Friday evening, Samuel arrived with something besides the bowl. A photograph in a plastic bag. I wanted to show you. This is Nate. Graduation day. Elena took it carefully. A younger Samuel, still strong, standing beside a teenage boy in cap and gown. The boy Nate was grinning, one arm around Samuel's shoulders. Samuel was looking at Nate with pure love, pure pride. He looks happy. He was. This was the best day of my life. Samuel took the photo back, gazing at it. I carry it everywhere, so I can remember he was real, that I didn't imagine the love. Elena had to turn away, hands shaking with anger, but Samuel was smiling. I got more than most men ever get. I had Margaret. I had Nate. I had years of happiness. You deserve more than memories. Maybe, but memories are better than nothing. He accepted the bowl of chicken and dumplings. And now I got this. Got you. Got a reason to wake up tomorrow. Mr. Hartman, if you could talk to Nate right now, what would you say? He thought for a long moment. I'd tell him I love him. I'd tell him I'm proud. I'd tell him he doesn't owe me anything. He paused. And I'd tell him that at the end of the day, what matters is the people who loved you when you had nothing. Would you tell him you're angry? No, because I'm not. I'm just sad. Sad that he doesn't know what he's missing. He shook his head. Poor boy. He has everything and nothing all at once. Elena realized Samuel Hartman was a better man than she could ever hope to be. Because if someone had done to her what Nate had done to him, she wouldn't forgive. She'd burn the whole world down. But Samuel just sat there, eating his dumplings, carrying his photograph close to his heart, loving a son who'd forgotten he existed. And Elena made another promise. If Nate Hartman ever showed his face in Riverside Haven, he would answer for this. He would see. 3,000 miles away, Nathaniel Hartman stood at a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking New York City, and felt absolutely nothing. The party behind him was in full swing. Over 200 people filled his penthouse. Everything was perfect. Everything was empty. Nate was 32 years old and worth $4.7 billion. Business magazines called him the Maverick. Wall Street called him the Golden Boy. None of them really knew him. A woman in a silver dress appeared at his elbow. Rebecca something. An actress. This party is incredible. Thanks. He smiled automatically, the smile he'd perfected over years. You should come to the Hamptons next weekend. I'll check my schedule. A hand clapped his shoulder. Mason Lee, his business partner. Nate, we need to talk. Ethan's here. Ethan who? Ethan Hale, the documentary director. Journey of Legends. Nate frowned. I told you I wasn't interested. You need to be interested. The Parker deal is shaky. We need good press. Mason guided him away. Ethan wants to do an episode about your rise from nothing. The investors will eat it up. I don't want cameras. One weekend. Go back to your hometown. Show where you came from. Boom. Instant relatability. My hometown is a dump. Even better. Mason was already pulling him across the room. Just talk to Ethan. 5 minutes. Ethan Hale was thin 40s, expensive glasses, eager smile. Mr. Hartman, thank you for meeting. I'm such an admirer. Mason says you want to make a documentary. Not just a documentary, a portrait. Your story is perfect. Orphaned, raised in poverty, fought to the top through determination. Nate felt something twist in his chest. I wasn't exactly orphaned. Well, close enough, right? Your adoptive father was just a simple craftsman. You had nothing. Look at you now. Ethan gestured around. This is the American dream. What would this involve? We'd follow you for a weekend, interview you, But the real gold would be going back to Riverside Haven, showing where you came from, maybe talking to your father if he's still alive. The twist tightened. My father, is he still living? He's still there. Perfect. Imagine the billionaire returns home. We could film you surprising him, maybe bringing a gift. The emotional impact would be huge. Mason jumped in. The Parker board thinks you're too cold. This would show them you're human. I am human. Yay. But they don't see it. Mason looked at him seriously. This is an easy win. One weekend. Nate looked between them, both looking at him like he was a commodity. When would we do this? Next weekend. I've got a crew on standby. 8 years. Nate hadn't been back to Riverside Haven in 8 years. He'd sent money once, a check for $5,000, but it had come back uncashed with a note. Save your money, son. I'm fine. And Nate had believed him, or wanted to, or needed to. Fine. Next weekend. Ethan practically squealed. Fantastic. Nate stopped listening. Somewhere out there 3,000 miles away, Samuel was probably asleep. Does he think about me? Nate wondered. The party swirled around him. The string quartet played something new. You okay? Mason asked. Yay. Fine. You don't have to do this. It's fine. It's one weekend. I'll go home, see the old man, let Ethan get his footage, then everything goes back to normal. Will it? Mason was watching carefully. Go back to normal. Why wouldn't it? Mason didn't answer. He just patted Nate's shoulder and walked away. Nate stood alone by the window, surrounded by 200 people, and felt the vast emptiness of his success pressing down. He thought about Samuel, tried to picture him, but all he could remember was the man from 8 years ago, strong, capable, smiling. So Nate hadn't looked back, and now he was going home. The party went on until 3 a.m. When everyone left, Nate stood in his empty penthouse and felt more alone than ever. He pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered over the search bar. He could look up Riverside Haven, could call ahead, but he didn't. Ethan wanted authentic emotion, wanted a genuine reaction. Fine, he'd give them genuine. He'd go home. The limousine pulled into Riverside Haven on a cold Saturday afternoon, followed by 2 production vans. The crew looked at the rundown town like it was a movie set. Perfect, Ethan said. Real small-town America. Authentic struggle. Nate looked out at the town he'd left behind. It looked smaller, sadder. Half the stores were boarded up. Is this where you grew up? Sarah, a camera operator, sounded disbelieving. Yay. And now you live in a $50 million penthouse? Yay. The assistant read from a tablet. Your father still lives at 143 Maple Street. I know where he lives. I grew up there. The limousine turned onto Maple Street, and Nate felt his chest tighten. He knew these houses, these sidewalks. Pull over here, Ethan instructed. We'll set up. They pulled over 3 houses away from 143. Nate stayed in the car, staring at the house. It looked worse. The porch sagged. The paint was gone. One shutter hung at an angle. The yard was overgrown. What happened? Mr. Hartman. Ethan tapped the window. We're ready whenever you are. Nate got out. The cold air hit him immediately. A small crowd had gathered. He heard whispers. Is that Nate Hartman? Can't be. He's too fancy now. It is him. Look at that suit. Ethan gave instructions. Nate walked naturally toward the house. Don't look at the camera. Let the emotions come naturally. One take, Nate said flatly. I'm not performing. Of course. Even better. Raw and genuine. Nate started walking. The street felt longer than it used to. He passed Mrs. Chen's house. She stood on her porch, arms crossed, watching with hard eyes. And then he was in front of 143 Maple Street. He started up the walkway, and that's when he heard it. Clang, clang, clang. Metal on metal, coming from nearby. Nate stopped, turning toward the sound. The cameras kept rolling. Clang, clang, clang. It was coming from a house across the street. Nate turned fully now. Something told him to look. A figure stood on that porch. An old man, bent, thin, holding something. The old man was tapping a metal bowl against a railing, gently, apologetically. A young woman came out with a bowl of steaming food. The old man took it with shaking hands. Something about the scene froze Nate. Something about the old man's posture, the way he held himself. No, Nate started walking again, not toward Samuel's house, toward the other porch, toward the old man. Nate, Ethan called. Where are you going? Nate didn't answer. He crossed the street. The crew scrambled to follow. He got closer. The old man looked up, and Nate's world stopped. Samuel. But not Samuel. Not the strong man who'd waved goodbye 8 years ago. This Samuel was a ghost. Hollow face, sunken eyes, trembling hands gripping the bowl, clothes hanging on a frame that had lost half its weight. And he was begging. Samuel. Nate's voice came out broken. Pa. Samuel's head snapped up. The bowl nearly fell. Nate. The young woman stood quickly, positioning herself in front of Samuel, protective. She looked at Nate with hostility. You, she said coldly. You're Nathaniel Hartman. Yes, I didn't. Nate couldn't form sentences. He stared at Samuel, at the bowl, at the broken man. The crowd was growing. That's Nate Hartman. That's Samuel's boy. The billionaire. He came back. Samuel was just staring, mouth opening and closing. Nate took a step forward. Pa. Why? Why are you? Don't you dare. The young woman's voice cut like a knife. Don't you dare act shocked. Nate looked at her. Young, early 20s, poor. But her eyes were fierce. Miss, I don't know who you are. I'm the one who's been feeding him. I'm the one who makes sure he doesn't starve, because his brilliant, successful billionaire son abandoned him. The words hit like blows. Behind him, cameras still rolling. Ethan whispered. Are you getting this? Do you know what he did for you? She was louder now. Everyone could hear. He sold his cow to pay for your school. He sold his wife's piano. He worked 3 jobs. He gave you everything. Samuel reached out. Elena, don't. No, he needs to hear this. She turned back to Nate. Your father went hungry so you could eat. He destroyed his health so you could have a future. And you left him here. You let him starve. You let him walk door to door with a bowl begging for scraps. The crowd murmured, angry, disgusted. $4 billion and his father's begging. That's evil. Nate tried to speak. I didn't know. I thought he was okay. When? Elena demanded. When did you send money? Once, 8 years ago, and then you forgot. Too busy counting billions to make one phone call. I thought he told me not to worry. And you listened, because it was easier. Easier to believe he was fine than to check. Easier to enjoy your penthouse than to remember the man who made it possible. Nate felt tears burning. He looked at Samuel. Still holding that bowl, smaller and more fragile than imaginable. Pa. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't. Don't apologize to him. Apologies are just words. Where were you? Everywhere. At parties, at meetings, in boardrooms, building an empire, becoming someone who'd forgotten the only person who'd ever truly loved him. He defended you. Elena continued. Tears in her eyes now. Every single day, people said terrible things and he'd defend you. He'd say you were busy. He'd say you'd come back. He'd say you were making something of yourself and he was proud. Each word was a knife. He carried your picture. Elena pointed at Samuel's chest. Right there, every day. So he could remember you were real. Nate couldn't breathe. Samuel spoke. Elena, please, don't be angry at him. He's here now. He's here for the cameras. He's here because some director wanted footage, not because he cared. That's not. Nate started, but he didn't know if it was true. Why was he here? For the documentary. For the Parker deal. Not for Samuel. Never for Samuel. Samuel set the bowl down with shaking hands. He straightened as much as he could. He looked at Nate with kind, loving eyes. Nate. My boy. And Nate broke. He rushed forward, dropping to his knees at the porch steps. Pa. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have come back. I should have called. I should have. Samuel came down the steps slowly, painfully. When he reached Nate, he put one trembling hand on his head, just like when Nate was a child. I never stopped loving you. Not for one day. That destroyed him. Nate wrapped his arms around Samuel's thin waist and sobbed. 8 years of guilt poured out on this street, in front of these cameras, in front of this town. And Samuel, fragile, hungry, begging, Samuel held him. It's okay, Samuel whispered, though it wasn't. You're home now. Ethan was gesturing frantically. Keep rolling. Elena stood on the porch, tears streaming down her face. Angry tears. Sad tears. The crowd watched in silence, some crying, some still angry. All of them witnesses to the moment when Nathaniel Hartman came face to face with the cost of his success, and found it wanting. The street fell silent, except for Nate's sobs. He clung to Samuel, and Samuel held him, with what little strength remained. Elena stood on the porch, fists clenched. Part of her wanted to keep yelling, but another part, the part that had spent weeks listening to Samuel's stories, couldn't move. Finally, Samuel spoke softly. "Get up, son, people are watching." Nate pulled back, face wet, and looked up at his father. Saw the hollow cheeks, the trembling hands, the clothes hanging loose, saw what 8 years had done. "What happened to you, Pa? What happened?" Samuel tried to smile. "I got old, that's all." "No, this isn't just age, he's starving." Elena's voice cut through. "He's starving because he has no money, no income, nothing." Nate turned to her. "I sent money. 8 years ago, $5,000. Once, you sent money once. And when he sent it back because he was too proud, did you send it again? Did you call? Did you do anything except tell yourself everything was fine?" More people had gathered. Mrs. Chen spoke up, voice hard. "He's been begging for 6 months, going door to door like a dog, and most folks turned him away," Mr. Peterson added. "Told him to ask his rich son. But you never knew," another voice said. "Because you never bothered to check." Nate looked around at the hostile faces, saw the judgment, and saw they were right. Samuel put a hand on Nate's arm. "Don't listen to them. You had to go. You had to build your life. At what cost? Pa, you're begging. I have $4 billion and you're begging for soup. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have called, should have visited." Nate's voice rose. "You're right. All of you, I'm everything you think I am." Elena watched, her anger wavering. This wasn't excuses. This breakdown felt real. Samuel was shaking his head. "Nate, no, don't do this." "Why not? Give me one reason why I don't deserve this." "Because you're my son. Because I love you. Because you did what I told you. You went out and made something of yourself. That's what I wanted. You wanted me to forget you. I wanted you to be free." Samuel put both hands on Nate's face. "I wanted you to fly, not to be weighed down by an old man's problems. You're not a problem. You're my father. And you're my son. My brilliant, wonderful son." Tears ran down Samuel's weathered face. "I'm proud of you, Nate. I've always been proud." That broke something in Nate again. He pulled Samuel into another embrace, gentler, mindful of how fragile he was. "I'm taking you with me, back to New York. You'll live with me. I'll take care of you. Is that what you want?" Elena's voice cut through. "Or is that what you think will fix this? Throw money at the problem. Move him into your penthouse like furniture." Nate pulled back from Samuel. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about whether you actually want him in your life, or whether you just want to ease your guilt. Because if you take him to New York and ignore him in a different house, that's worse." "I won't ignore him." "You ignored him for 8 years. That's different. You didn't want to know. Be honest. For once, be honest. You could have called. You chose not to. So before you make promises, I want to know if you'll actually keep them, or if this is just for the cameras." Nate opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at the film crew. Ethan had lowered his hand, looking uncomfortable. "Turn them off," Nate said quietly. "What?" Ethan blinked. "The cameras. Turn them off." "But Nate, turn them off. Now, all of them." Sarah lowered her camera first, then the others followed. Red lights blinked off. The sound guy removed his headphones. A different silence settled. No longer performance. Just people facing truth. Nate turned back to Elena. "You're right, about all of it. I could have called. I didn't, because I was ashamed." "Ashamed of what?" "Of taking so long. Of not making it big fast enough. Pa sold everything for me, and for 5 years I had nothing. I thought I couldn't come back until I'd made it. Until I could prove his sacrifices weren't wasted." He looked at Samuel. "I thought I had to be successful first, had to be worth something. And by the time I finally made money, so much time had passed. And I told myself you were probably angry. I told myself I'd wait just a little longer, and then everything would be perfect. But it never felt like enough," Samuel said softly. "It never felt like enough. So I kept waiting, kept building. And 8 years passed like I blinked." Elena watched him carefully. watched the genuine anguish. That's not an excuse, Nate continued. There is no excuse. I abandoned you, Pa. I left you behind and told myself it was noble, but I was just protecting myself from guilt, from having to face you and admit I wasn't the perfect son. Samuel reached out and touched Nate's face. You were always perfect to me. I wasn't. I'm not. But I want to be better. Nate's voice broke. I want to be the son you thought I was. You already are. How can you say that? Samuel smiled. Because I know you, Nate. I know your heart. You got lost for a while, but you're not lost anymore. You're right here. That's all that matters. Mrs. Chen spoke from the crowd, softer now. The question is what you do next. Nate turned to face them. I know I can't undo the past, but I'm asking for a chance to make this right. Words are cheap, Mr. Peterson said, less hostile. Let's see if your actions match. Nate nodded. Pa, I'm not forcing you to come to New York, but I'm staying, right here, for as long as it takes. Staying. Samuel looked confused. But your work, my work can wait. For the first time in 8 years my work can wait. I'm staying in Riverside Haven, until we figure this out together. Until I prove you matter more than money. Samuel's face transformed. Hope flickered in his eyes. You mean it? I mean it. I swear on Mom's memory. I'm not leaving you again. Samuel's legs seemed to buckle. Nate caught him immediately. Elena rushing forward to help. Between them they helped Samuel up the steps and into the rocking chair. Elena ran inside and came back with the bowl of soup. Finish this. You need to eat. Samuel took the bowl with shaking hands, and Nate knelt beside the chair, one hand on his father's knee. The billionaire kneeling at his father's feet. The image said more than words could. Ethan approached carefully. Nate, I'm sorry. I didn't know. It's not your fault. This is on me. What about the documentary? Cancel it. Are you sure? What we captured is powerful. I said, cancel it. This isn't content. This is my life. His life. I'm not turning our pain into entertainment. Ethan nodded. Understood. I'll delete everything. The crowd began dispersing. Some still looked angry, others thoughtful. A few were crying. They'd witnessed something raw and true. Elena stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching Nate kneel beside Samuel. She didn't trust him yet, but she wanted to. She wanted to believe people could change. Samuel finished the soup. He looked tired, but there was something new in his face. Peace, relief. I'm glad you came back, he said to Nate. I've missed you, son. I've missed you too, Pa. Every day. Elena cleared her throat. He needs rest. Real rest. Nate stood. Where does he live? Our old house looks empty. I lost it, Samuel said quietly. Couldn't pay taxes. Bank took it 2 years ago. Nate's face went pale. Where have you been living? Here and there. Sometimes the shelter. Sometimes folks let me sleep in garages. Nate looked like he might be sick. He can't stay there, Nate said, voice rising with panic. Elena, where's the nearest hotel? 40 miles away. Then I'll rent a house. He needs stability. Elena interrupted. Not you throwing money in a panic. He needs to know you'll be here tomorrow, and the day after. Nate looked at her, really seeing her for the first time. The young woman who'd taken care of his father when he couldn't be bothered. Thank you, he said quietly, for taking care of him, for being there when I wasn't. Elena didn't know what to say, so she nodded. Samuel reached out and took both their hands. His grip was surprisingly firm. Look at me, both of you. They looked. Nate, this young woman has been my angel. She's kept me alive with her kindness. I know, Pa. And Elena, this is my son. He made mistakes, big ones, but he's here now, and I'm asking you to give him a chance to make it right. Elena looked at Nate, saw the tear-stained face, the genuine remorse, the fear that maybe it was too late. She thought about the story Samuel had told, about the little boy who'd helped fix radios, who'd read to his dying mother. That boy was still in there somewhere. Okay, she said finally. One chance. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you've proven you deserve it. The sun was setting, painting Riverside Haven in orange and gold. The production crew packed up their equipment. Nate helped Samuel stand. Come on, Pa. Let's find somewhere warm for tonight. There's a motel on Route 7, Elena offered. Mrs. Rodriguez runs it. She'll take care of you. Will you come with us? Samuel asked. Please, I want you there. Elena started to refuse, but something in Samuel's eyes stopped her. He needed her there, the stability she represented. Okay, I'll come. The three of them walked slowly toward the limousine, Samuel in the middle leaning on both of them. Behind them, Elena's mother appeared on the porch, raising one hand in a small wave. Elena waved back. As they reached the car, Nate helped Samuel into the back seat, being so gentle it made Elena's chest ache. Then he turned to her. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know where to start. You start by being here. You show up, every day. You rebuild trust one moment at a time. What if it's too late? Then you live with that. But at least you'll know you tried. Nate nodded slowly. Then he pulled out his wallet and handed her a credit card. What's this? For the food you've been buying him. And for your mother's medical bills. Elena tried to push it back. I don't want your money. It's not charity. It's a debt. You took care of my father when I should have been here. Elena looked at the card, thought about her mother's coughing. The unpaid bills. Pride warred with practicality. Practicality won. Okay, but this doesn't make us even. Money doesn't fix abandonment. I know, but it's a start. Elena got into the limousine with them. As they drove toward Route 7, Samuel rested his head on Nate's shoulder, and Nate wrapped an arm around him. And in that moment, Elena allowed herself to hope that maybe some broken things could be fixed after all, if you cared enough to try. The motel on Route 7 was simple but clean. Mrs. Rodriguez took one look at Samuel and ushered them into the best room she had. No charge, she said firmly. Samuel's been a good man to this town for 40 years. Nate wanted to argue, but Elena touched his arm and shook her head. Some things weren't about money. Samuel sat on the edge of one bed, looking around like he couldn't quite believe he was allowed to be there. Nate knelt in front of him, taking his father's hands. Pa, when did you last see a doctor? Samuel had to think. Maybe 2 years ago. For the arthritis. 2 years. We're getting you to a hospital. Tonight. I'm fine, son. Just tired. You're not fine. Nate stopped, gathering himself. Please, let me take you to a doctor. Samuel looked at Elena, who nodded. It's a good idea, Mr. Hartman. All right, if it'll make you feel better. Nate immediately pulled out his phone, searching for the nearest emergency room, calling for the limousine. Elena watched him move with aggressive efficiency, but now it was directed at something that actually mattered. Mrs. Rodriguez brought soup. Eat before you go anywhere. Samuel's eyes fixed on the food with desperate hunger. It broke Elena's heart every time. While Samuel ate, Nate stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. Elena could hear pieces. I don't care what time it is, Mason. Cancel everything. No, I'm not coming back tomorrow. The Parker deal can wait, because my father is more important than $4 billion. Elena found herself reassessing him. This wasn't the cold billionaire she'd imagined. Nate ended the call. There's a good hospital 20 minutes from here. They're expecting us. Samuel had finished half the soup, and was wrapping the bread in a napkin, saving food for later. Nate saw it, and something flickered across his face. Pain. He knelt down, gently taking the napkin. Pa, you don't have to save it. There's more. There's always going to be more. I promise. His voice cracked. You're never going hungry again. Never. Do you understand? Samuel nodded, but Elena saw the doubt. When you've been hungry long enough, promises stop meaning anything. At the hospital things moved quickly. Within minutes, Samuel was in an examination room with doctors conducting tests. Nate tried to stay, but a nurse guided him to the waiting room. Let us work. So Nate and Elena sat in the fluorescent-lit waiting room. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally Elena spoke. Why did you really come back? Nate looked at her. I told you, the documentary. No, I mean today. Why today? Nate was quiet. Because I was running out of excuses. Mason kept pushing, and I realized I couldn't say no without admitting why I didn't want to come back. So I told myself it would be fine. Told myself Pa would be proud. Told myself we'd have this great reunion. And now I know what I am. I'm the man who let his father beg while I drank champagne in a penthouse. His voice broke. I'm exactly what you said I am. You want absolution. I want to deserve forgiveness, even if I never get it. Samuel's already forgiven you. I know, that makes it worse. Nate looked at her. How do you forgive someone for abandoning you? I don't know. I couldn't. But Samuel's a better person than most. He loves you, real love. I don't deserve it, probably not, but you have it anyway. The question is what you do with it. Before Nate could respond, a doctor emerged. Middle-aged woman with tired eyes. Mr. Hartman. Nate stood immediately. How is he? He's stable, but severely malnourished. Underweight, by at least 40 pounds. Vitamin deficiencies, dehydration, advanced arthritis. She consulted her chart. I'd like to keep him overnight. Long term, he needs regular meals, medical care, probably physical therapy. Whatever he needs, cost doesn't matter. The doctor smiled slightly. He's asking for both of you. They followed her to a private room. Samuel lay in a hospital bed, looking impossibly small against white sheets. An IV ran into his arm. Monitors beeped quietly, but he was smiling. All this fuss, he said weakly. They're treating me like I'm important. You are important, Nate said immediately. You're the most important person in my life. Don't let your business partners hear you say that. I don't care about business partners. I don't care about deals. I don't care about any of it anymore. Now son, don't be dramatic. I worked hard for the wrong things. I built an empire, and lost my soul. I became someone you wouldn't recognize. Samuel squeezed his hand weakly. You're still my Nate, I can see him in there. I don't know if that's true. I do. Samuel turned to Elena. Elena saw it too. That's why she's giving you a chance. Elena shifted uncomfortably. You didn't have to. I know you. You don't waste time on hopeless causes. If Nate was truly rotten, you'd have walked away. But you're here. Elena couldn't argue with that logic. The doctor checked Samuel's vitals. Everything looks good. We'll get nutrition into you tonight, and you should feel better by morning. After she left, Nate began pacing. I need to make plans. You'll need a place to live. I'll buy a house here if that's where you want to be. Or New York, Nate. Samuel's voice was soft but firm. Stop. Nate froze. Sit down, son. Nate sat. I appreciate everything you want to do. But what I need right now isn't a house or money or grand gestures. I need you to sit with me. Just sit. Just be my son for a while. Can you do that? Nate's face crumpled. Yeah, Pa, I can do that. So they sat together in the quiet hospital room. Nate held Samuel's hand, while the old man drifted in and out of sleep. Around midnight, Samuel woke briefly. Do you remember the radio? Which radio, Pa? The first one I taught you to fix. You were 8. Mrs. Chen's kitchen radio. A smile ghosted across Nate's face. You told me every broken thing is just a puzzle waiting to be solved. And you believed me. You took that radio apart, and put it back together perfectly. I was so proud. You had magic in your hands, son. Nate's voice was thick. I don't know if that's true anymore. It is. You just forgot for a while. But you're remembering now. Within moments, Samuel was asleep again. But Nate stayed, holding his father's hand, tears running silently. Elena stood. I should go. Let you have time with him. Wait. Nate looked up. How do I do this? How do I make up for 8 years? You can't. You can't undo the past. You can only build a better future, one day at a time. What if I fail? What if I hurt him again? Then you get up and try harder. Samuel doesn't need you to be perfect. He just needs you to be present. Nate looked at his sleeping father, at the IV, at the monitors tracking his weak but steady heartbeat. Yes, Nate said quietly, I can do that. Elena nodded. Then that's where you start. She left them alone, and walked out into the cold night. The limousine driver offered to take her home, but she declined. She needed to walk. She thought about Samuel's face when he'd seen Nate, the immediate joy, the instant forgiveness. She thought about Nate's breakdown, his genuine remorse. At least they had this, had the chance to rebuild, had tomorrow. When Elena made it home, Her mother was still awake. "How is he?" her mother asked. "Malnourished, exhausted, but alive. The son came back. Do you believe he'll stay?" "I don't know. I want to. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes all we get is moments." Elena thought about moments. About Nate kneeling at Samuel's feet. About him holding his father and crying. About him promising to be better. Maybe moments were enough. Or maybe they were just the beginning. Back at the hospital, Nate sat in the dark room, listening to his father breathe. Regular, steady, alive. He pulled out his phone. 14 messages from Mason, 8 from various associates, all wanting something. He put the phone on silent. Tomorrow he'd deal with business. Tomorrow he'd figure out logistics. Tomorrow he'd start building the life Samuel deserved. But tonight, he just sat with his father and kept watch. Just like Samuel had done for him all those years ago. Love, Nate realized, was just showing up. Being present, choosing someone over and over. He'd forgotten that for 8 years. But he was remembering now, and he wasn't going to forget again. Sunday morning arrived, cold and bright. Nate woke stiff in the hospital chair, his hand still holding Samuel's. A nurse came in quietly to check vitals. "Good morning. He's better. The IV fluids are helping. He should be able to go home this afternoon." After she left, Nate stepped into the hallway and checked his phone. 23 new messages. He scrolled through, deleting most, until one name caught his eye. "Mason Lee, we need to talk. I'm at the motel now." Nate frowned. Mason had come to Riverside Haven. He checked on Samuel still sleeping peacefully, and left a note with the nurse. Then he headed to the motel. Mason was waiting in the parking lot, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. "You came all the way here?" Nate asked. "We have a problem. A big one. The Parker deal. Worse." Mason gestured toward the motel. "Can we talk inside?" They got a key from Mrs. Rodriguez, and took an empty room. Mason sat on the bed, while Nate stood by the window. "All right, what's the crisis?" Mason pulled out his phone, showing Nate a news headline. "Billionaire's father found begging, a story of abandoned success." Nate felt his stomach drop. How did Ethan's crew? Someone leaked the footage before he could delete it. Mason scrolled through more headlines. "It's everywhere. There are clips of your father on that porch. Clips of you crying. Clips of that girl calling you out. Ethan promised. Someone in his crew had other ideas. Probably sold it." Mason set his phone aside. "Nate, this is a disaster. Your reputation is tanking. The Parker board called an emergency meeting. They're talking about pulling out." Nate stared at the headlines. Millions of people watching Samuel beg. Watching Nate break down. "Good," Nate said quietly. Mason's head snapped up. "What?" "I said good. Let them see what I did. Are you insane? This could cost you billions. Then it collapses." "I don't care anymore, Mason." "You don't care about $4 billion. Not if it costs my father." Nate's voice was firm. "Not if it costs my soul." Mason stood agitated. "You're in shock. But you need to think clearly. We can fix this. I'm not spinning anything." "Nate, listen." Mason moved closer. "We can turn this around. We brought someone who can help." "Who?" Before Mason could answer, there was a knock. Mason opened it, and a man stepped inside. 50s, silver hair, expensive suit. "Marcus Vance," Nate said flatly. "You brought a crisis management consultant. The best." Marcus extended his hand. Nate didn't take it. Marcus lowered it, unfazed. "Mr. Hartman, I've reviewed your situation. We can not only salvage your reputation but improve it." "I don't want my reputation salvaged." "You should." Marcus pulled out a tablet. "Right now you're the villain, but we can flip this, turn you into the hero." "How?" "By owning it, by using it." Marcus showed a mock-up. "You announce the Samuel Hartman Foundation for Forgotten Heroes. Pledge $100 million to help elderly people in poverty. Do interviews about your mistakes and redemption. Bring your father on talk shows." Nate felt sick. "You want to use him, again." "I want to use the situation to help people while rebuilding your brand. It's exploitation." Marcus sighed. "The footage is already out there. The damage is done. You can let it destroy you, or take control. Turn your mistake into a message. Mason jumped in. Think about it. You could actually help people, make a difference, and save your business. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is turning my father's suffering into a marketing campaign. I'm asking you to make something good come out of something bad. The Parker deal alone is worth $4.2 billion. If that falls through, we lose everything. Not just money, jobs, your employees, people who depend on you. That gave Nate pause. The hundreds of people who worked for his companies, their families. How long do I have? The Parker board meets tomorrow morning. If we announce this foundation tonight, we might save the deal. Marcus pulled up another slide. I've drafted talking points. We can get you on morning shows by Tuesday. Have your father there, looking healthy. Show the world you're making it right. He's barely started treatment. He's weak. We'll have the best makeup team. No one will know. And there it was. Make Samuel look healthy. Hide the truth. Sell a story. Nate thought about Samuel sleeping in that hospital bed, about the IV feeding nutrients, about the way he'd smiled when he saw Nate, despite everything, about the photograph he carried over his heart. No, Nate said. Nate Mason started. I said no. Marcus set his tablet down. You need to think rationally. Your father wouldn't want you to lose everything because of him. You don't know anything about my father. I know he sacrificed for you. Honor that. Use what he taught you and channel it into something positive. It was a good speech. Part of Nate, the part that had built $4 billion, recognized the logic. But then he remembered Alina's words. What if you take him to New York and ignore him in a different house? That's worse. This was the same thing. Taking Samuel's pain and packaging it, making it useful, turning his father into a tool. Get out, Nate said quietly. Excuse me, get out. Both of you. Nate, you're making a mistake, Mason said. The Parker board can go to hell. So can every investor who thinks my father's suffering should be turned into content. Get out. Marcus stood smoothly. You're going to regret this. When your empire is in ruins, you're going to wish you'd listened. Maybe. But at least I'll be able to look my father in the eye. Marcus left. Mason lingered, his face a mixture of anger and disbelief. After everything we worked for, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just choosing my father. Over $4 billion. Over everything. Because that's what love is. My father taught me that. I just forgot for a while. Mason shook his head. You've changed. Good. The person I was yesterday would have said yes, would have put my father on TV, and I would have hated myself forever. And now I'm going back to the hospital. Tomorrow when he's strong enough, I'm taking him home. Here, to Riverside Haven, and I'm staying. For how long? As long as it takes. Mason stared at him, then his expression softened slightly. Maybe you're not as far gone as I thought. But don't come crying when you're broke. I won't be broke. Even if I lose the Parker deal, I'll still have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But more importantly, I'll have my father. After Mason left, Nate sat alone. He pulled out his phone and looked at the leaked footage everywhere online. Samuel, thin and trembling. Elena, fierce and protective. Nate himself, broken and crying. The comments were brutal. Thousands calling him every name. Some said he should be in jail. Others said he deserved to lose everything. He could fix this. Marcus was right. $100 million foundation. Carefully crafted interviews. He could turn himself back into a hero. But it would all be a lie. Another transaction. Nate deleted the articles without reading more. He didn't need the world's forgiveness. He needed his father's peace. He walked back to the hospital as the sun climbed higher. When he entered Samuel's room, he found Elena already there. She looked up. Your father's awake. The doctor says he can leave this afternoon. Samuel was indeed awake, looking more alert. Nate, where did you go? Just handling some business, pa. Nothing important. Elena studied his face. What happened? Nate glanced at her, then Samuel. Mason came with a crisis management consultant. They wanted me to turn this into a publicity campaign, set up a foundation, do interviews,
Use you to rehabilitate my image." Samuel's face fell. "And you said yes." "No, Pa." I said no, "but your business doesn't matter. You matter. And I'm not turning you into a prop. Not for money. Not for reputation. Not for anything."
Elena was watching carefully. "Even though it might cost you billions, even though," Nate looked at her, "you were right yesterday. I needed someone to hold a mirror up, and I don't like what I saw, so I'm changing. Starting now." Samuel reached out and took Nate's hand. "Your mother would be proud of you right now." Those words hit harder than any warnings. Nate felt tears sting his eyes. "You think so, I know so. Margaret always said true success isn't what you gain, it's what you're willing to give up for the people you love. You just gave up billions for me." Elena stood. "I should go." "Wait," Nate said. "I need to say something to you too. Thank you. Not just for feeding my father, but for not giving up on me. You could have, but you gave me a chance, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve it." Elena's expression softened. "Just take care of him. That's all the proof I need." After she left, Nate spent the rest of the morning with Samuel. They talked about small things. The food, the nurses, the view. Nothing deep, just father and son, being together. The doctor came in around noon with discharge papers. "You're free to go, but remember 3 meals a day, lots of protein, take these vitamins, and I want to see you back in 2 weeks." "I'll make sure he's here," Nate promised. They gathered Samuel's few belongings and headed out. But before they got in the limousine, Nate stopped. "Actually, let's walk." Samuel looked surprised. "It's nearly 2 miles. I know, but I want to walk it with you, like we used to. Remember?" A smile spread across Samuel's face. "I remember, you'd ask 1,000 questions." "Well, I still have questions." Nate offered his arm. "Walk with me, Pa." Samuel took his arm, and together they set off down Route 7, the limousine trailing behind. They walked slowly, stopping when Samuel needed to rest. Nate pointed out things he remembered: the oak tree, the creek, the field where Samuel taught him baseball. "You were terrible at baseball," Samuel said, laughing. "I was terrible at everything except fixing things. You were good at being kind, at seeing people. That's what mattered most. I lost my heart somewhere." "No, son, you just misplaced it. But you're finding it again." They walked in silence for a while. Then Samuel asked, "What are you going to do about your business?" "I don't know. Maybe I'll lose it all." Nate looked at his father. "But whatever happens, I'm staying here until you're strong, until you're healthy, until you don't need me. I'll always need you. Then I guess I'm staying forever." Samuel chuckled. "A billionaire living in Riverside Haven." "I'm not a billionaire here. I'm just Nate, your son." Samuel stopped walking and turned to face Nate fully. His eyes were bright. "Nate, I never stopped wanting you. You could come back with nothing, and I'd welcome you with open arms. Even after what I did, especially after, because you came back. You faced it. You chose me. That takes more courage than running away." Nate pulled his father into a gentle embrace. They stood like that on the side of Route 7, while the limousine waited and the afternoon sun warmed the cold day. When they pulled apart, Nate felt something shift. A weight he'd been carrying, guilt, shame, fear, seemed to lighten. Not gone. Maybe never fully gone, but lighter. "Come on, Pa, let's go home." They continued toward Riverside Haven, toward whatever future waited. Behind them the limousine followed, but Nate knew he'd send it back to New York soon. He wouldn't need it anymore. He had everything that mattered right here. By Monday morning, Riverside Haven was buzzing. The leaked footage had gone viral. Millions of views, endless news coverage. Reporters had started showing up looking for Samuel, looking for Nate, looking for the story. Elena answered her door to find 3 camera crews on her street. "Miss Brooks, can you comment on Nathaniel Hartman's treatment of his father?" She closed the door without answering and called Nate immediately. He picked up on the first ring. "I know, they're everywhere, but Elena," Ethan Hale called. "He's horrified about the leak. He has an idea. Can you meet at the motel in an hour?" "Nate, if this is another scheme, it's not. I promise. Trust me. One more time." Elena agreed reluctantly. An hour later she arrived at the motel restaurant to find Nate, Samuel and Ethan sitting together. Samuel looked better, color in his cheeks, steadier hands. Ethan stood when she entered. "Miss Brooks, thank you. I owe you an apology. What happened with that footage was unconscionable. Someone on my crew violated every ethical standard, so what do you want? Elena said carefully. To make it right, the footage is out there, we can't undo that, but we can tell the rest of the story. The real story. Ethan leaned forward. I want to do a live broadcast, this Wednesday, 1 hour, you, Nate, and your father, maybe Elena too, we tell the truth, all of it. Elena frowned. How do you know about Marcus Vance? Marcus is already spinning it on the news, claiming Nate's having a breakdown. Nate's jaw tightened. So fight back, Ethan said. Not with his tactics, with truth. Show the world who Samuel is. Show them what love actually costs. Samuel spoke quietly. Son, I don't want to be on television. It wouldn't be a show, Pa. It would be setting the record straight, telling our story before Marcus turns it into something it's not. Why do you care what they think? I don't, but I care about you. Right now, everyone knows you're the father a billionaire abandoned, but they don't know who you are, what you did, how you loved me. I want them to know the real hero is you. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. I'm not a hero, I'm just a father. Exactly, and the world needs to see what that means. Elena watched carefully. This felt different, like Nate genuinely wanting to honor his father, not use him. What would the broadcast involve? She asked. A live interview, no editing, no scripts, just honest conversation. Ethan pulled out a tablet, and we broadcast from Riverside Haven. From somewhere meaningful to you. Nate looked at Samuel. It's your choice, Pa. If you don't want to, we won't. Samuel was quiet for a long time. If we do this, can we do it from the workshop, where I taught you to fix things? The workshop's been closed for years. Is it even still standing? I don't know, but that's where our story started, where you became my son. Ethan nodded enthusiastically. Perfect. We can clean it up. No. Samuel's voice was firm. No cleaning. Show it like it is. Show them what time and poverty do to dreams. Show them the truth. Ethan met his eyes. Okay, we show them the truth. The rest of Monday and Tuesday were spent preparing. Ethan brought in a small crew, just 4 people he personally trusted. They went to the old workshop, a small building with faded paint and broken windows. Inside, everything was as Samuel had left it. Workbenches covered in dust, tools on walls. Half-finished projects abandoned when Samuel's hands grew too unsteady. Nate stood in the middle. I spent so much time here as a kid. You practically lived here. Samuel agreed. Best years of my life. They didn't clean the workshop. They left the dust, the cobwebs, the evidence of abandonment. On Tuesday evening, Nate got a call from Mason. The Parker deal is officially dead. The board voted to go with Steinberg Corp. Okay, that's it. You just lost $4.2 billion. I know, and you're fine with that. Nate looked at Samuel sleeping peacefully across the room. Yeah, Mason, I'm fine with that. You're insane, maybe, or maybe I finally figured out what actually matters. Mason was quiet. For what it's worth, I'm glad you have your father back. Thanks. Wednesday arrived cold and clear. The broadcast was scheduled for 8 p.m. Eastern. Ethan had promoted it, and somehow it had caught fire. Millions were planning to watch. Elena arrived at the workshop, an hour before airtime. Samuel was already there wearing the same old cardigan he'd worn for years. Nate had offered new clothes, but Samuel refused. This is who I am. Nate wore a simple button-down and jeans. No expensive suit, just a man trying to make amends. At 7:55, Ethan's phone buzzed. He looked up, eyes wide. The viewership projections, 20 million people watching live, maybe more. Elena felt her stomach flip. We can still call this off, Ethan said. No, Samuel said firmly. We tell our story. At exactly 8 p.m., the cameras went live. Ethan looked into the lens. Good evening. What you're about to see is not a produced documentary. It's just the truth. About a father and son, love and abandonment, success and what it really costs. He turned to his guests. With me are Samuel Hartman, Nathaniel Hartman, and Elena Brooks. The world has seen the leaked footage, but they haven't heard your voices, so let's start. Nate, why did you leave? And Nate began to talk. He talked about being 20 and desperate to make Samuel proud, about feeling the weight of every sacrifice, about going to the city with dreams of quick success. But success didn't come quick. I struggled for years, and every day I struggled, I felt like I was failing Pat. So you stopped calling. Ethan prompted. I stopped calling because I was ashamed, because I couldn't face him until I'd made it. But you were always worth something to me, Samuel interjected. You didn't have to be successful, you just had to be you. Ethan turned to Samuel. Tell us about raising Nate, about what you sacrificed. And Samuel told the story, about finding a 7-year-old behind a dumpster, about choosing to love him, about selling the cow, the piano, the radio, about working until his body broke. I never thought of it as sacrifice, I thought of it as love. That's what love is, giving everything and not keeping score. But Nate disappeared for 8 years. How did that feel? Samuel was quiet. It felt like losing him twice. Once when his mother died, once when he left. But I never stopped hoping. He touched his chest. I carried his picture right here so I could remember he loved me once. Tears were streaming down Nate's face. He didn't hide them. Mr. Hartman, Ethan asked, when did you start begging? About 6 months ago. I'd lost everything, and hunger breaks down pride eventually. And during this time, your son was a billionaire. My son didn't know. I never told him. Why not? Because I told him to chase his dreams. And I meant it. I wanted him to be free, even if it meant I suffered. Ethan turned to Elena. Miss Brooks, you've been feeding Samuel for weeks. Why? Elena thought carefully. Because he's a good man who didn't deserve to be forgotten. Were you angry at Nate? Yes. Furious. And now? Elena looked at Nate. Now I think people make mistakes, but they can also choose to do better. And Nate's choosing that now. Ethan leaned forward. Nate, you turned down a plan that could have saved your billion-dollar deal. Why? Because it would have meant using my father. And I've used him enough. I used his sacrifices to build my success. I used his love without giving anything back. I'm done using him, even if it costs me everything. It did cost you. Do you regret it? Nate looked at Samuel. No, I don't regret it at all, because I got my father back. And he's worth more than all the money in the world. The interview continued for the full hour. They talked about the workshop, about Margaret, about the lessons Samuel taught. They talked about the moment on the porch, about the choice to stay, to rebuild, to start again. And through it all they were honest, painfully, beautifully honest. When the broadcast ended, Ethan looked into the camera one last time. You've just watched a story about failure and forgiveness, about what we lose when we chase success at any cost, and about what we gain when we finally choose love over everything else. Thank you for watching. The cameras went dark. For a moment everyone sat in silence. Then Samuel reached over and took Nate's hand. You did good, son. Your mother would be so proud. Nate couldn't speak. He just held his father's hand and cried. Outside, Elena heard her phone buzzing. Hundreds of notifications flooding in. You need to see this, she told Nate. He scrolled through comments. This is what real success looks like. I just called my dad. Thank you. Crying. This is beautiful. Forget billions. This man chose love. The responses kept coming. Thousands. Millions. Ethan's phone rang. He answered, listened, then looked at Nate with wide eyes. 32 million viewers. More than the Super Bowl. But Nate wasn't paying attention to numbers. He was sitting with his father in the workshop where they'd spent countless hours together. And that was the only number that mattered. One father, one son, one chance to make things right. Everything else was just noise. The morning after the broadcast, Riverside Haven found itself at the center of the world's attention. But inside the motel room on Route 7, Nate was focused on something more important, making breakfast for his father. He stood at the small kitchenette, scrambling eggs while Samuel watched from the table. You're going to burn them, Samuel observed. I'm not going to burn them. You always did cook too hot. The eggs were indeed slightly burned, but Samuel ate them anyway. Elena arrived around 9, carrying a newspaper. You need to see this. The front page of the New York Times showed Samuel and Nate, hands clasped, tears on both faces. The headline, The Price of Success: A Billionaire's Journey Back to What Matters. They're calling it the most watched broadcast of the year, Elena said. People are talking about it everywhere. Nate's phone had been ringing constantly. One name kept appearing, Mason Lee. Finally he answered. Mason, Nate, I just watched the broadcast, and I owe you an apology. I called you insane. But you were right. Mason's voice was quieter than Nate had ever heard. I've been thinking about my own father.
We haven't spoken in 3 years, because of some stupid argument, and I realized I'm becoming you. The old you. It's not too late to change that. I know. I'm calling him today. Mason paused. What you did took real courage. Thanks, Mason. Also, about 100 companies want to work with you now. Something about authentic values. Nate smiled tiredly. I'm not taking those calls. I figured. Take care of your dad. Throughout the morning more calls came. Producers, publishers, charities, everyone wanting a piece of the story. Nate declined them all. Around noon there was a knock. Mrs. Chen stood there, holding a knitted blanket. I came to apologize. I said terrible things when you were struggling. I turned you away. She unwrapped the cloth. I made this for you. I'm sorry, and I'm glad you have your son back. Samuel took the blanket with shaking hands, tears in his eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. After she left, Mr. Peterson came. Then the Hendersons. Then other neighbors, bringing food, bringing apologies, bringing gifts. The whole town seemed to be stopping by. Samuel accepted every apology with grace. We all do the best we can. By afternoon, Nate knew what he needed to do. He pulled Elena aside while Samuel was napping. I need to buy a house. Here somewhere Pa can be comfortable. Okay, there are a few places for sale. Actually, I had a specific place in mind. Our old house. It went back on the market last week. Elena looked at the photo. The house at 143 Maple Street. You want to buy back his home. I want to give it back to him. Fix it up. Give him the life he deserves. That's going to take time. I have both now. Will you help me? You know what he needs better than I do. Elena thought about it. About how much had changed. About how Nate had proven himself, over and over. Okay, I'll help. They spent the next week making it happen. Nate bought the house, paid cash, closed in 3 days. Then he hired local contractors. But he didn't just throw money around. He worked alongside them, learning how to fix the porch, repair the roof, restore the home. Samuel wasn't supposed to know. But on the 5th day, Samuel appeared at the house, staring at his old home being restored, tears streaming. Nate came down from the roof. Pa, you weren't supposed to see this yet. You're fixing my house. I'm fixing our house. It's going to be your home again. Samuel walked slowly up the path, the same path Nate had walked that day he returned. But now it was being repaired. Samuel climbed the porch, running his hand along the new railing. When I lost this place, I thought I'd lost everything. It's not gone, Pa. I'm bringing it back. Over the next 2 weeks, the transformation continued. Nate worked every day alongside the contractors. Elena came by, after shifts, helping choose paint colors, picking furniture. They found Samuel's old workbench in storage and brought it home. They tracked down Margaret's music box and placed it on the mantel. They filled the house with memories and warmth. And slowly, Samuel grew stronger. Regular meals, medical care, and hope were powerful medicine. He gained weight, his hands steadied. The exhaustion began to fade. 1 month after the broadcast, the house was ready. Nate blindfolded Samuel and led him inside. When he removed the blindfold, Samuel stood in his living room, freshly painted, fully furnished, filled with photographs. Welcome home, Pa. Samuel turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. The couch where he'd taught Nate to read. The kitchen where Margaret had made cornbread. The staircase leading to bedrooms full of memories. It's perfect. It's exactly how I remember it. Almost exactly. There's one more thing. Nate led him to the back room and opened the door. A fully equipped workshop. New tools on the walls. A proper workbench. Good lighting. Your hands are getting steadier. Doctor says with physical therapy, you might be able to work again. I thought maybe we could fix things together, like we used to. Samuel ran his hand over the workbench, eyes wet. I'd like that very much. That night, they had dinner at the big kitchen table. Samuel, Nate, Elena and her mother. Real family dinner with food and laughter and stories. Samuel sat at the head, where he belonged, no longer a beggar but a beloved father. After dinner, Samuel pulled Elena aside. Thank you, for saving my life, for believing in him when I couldn't, for being family. You're welcome, Mr. Hartman, but I think you saved yourself by never giving up on love. After they left, Nate and Samuel sat on the porch, the same porch where Samuel had once stood begging. But now it was strong and repaired, and home. Son, I need to tell you something. What is it, Pa? I'm proud of you. Not for the billions, not for the success, but for this. For choosing love, for coming back, for fixing what was broken. That takes more strength than building an empire ever could. Nate leaned his head on his father's shoulder. I learned it from you, Pa. They sat like that as the stars came out, father and son together again, with all the time in the world ahead. Inside the house, Margaret's music box sat beside Nate's graduation photo. The beggar's bowl was gone. The trembling hands were steady. Everything broken had been repaired. Not perfectly, some scars remained, but they were healing, together, and in the end, that was what mattered. Not the billions, not the success, not the empire, just love, just family, just the simple choice to show up for the people who matter. Day after day, Nate looked at his father in the porch light, and realized he was finally rich. Not in money, but in what actually counted. He had his father's forgiveness, his father's love, his father's presence. He had come home, and home was worth more than all the wealth in the world. The night was quiet, except for their breathing, synchronized after years apart. Samuel's hand found Nate's and held it tight. Don't ever leave me again, Samuel said softly. Never, Pa. I promise, I'm staying right here. And this time Nate meant it. This time he'd keep his promise, because he'd finally learned what his father had tried to teach him all along. That love isn't something you do when it's convenient. It's something you do when it's hard, when it costs everything. When the whole world pulls you away, that's when love matters most. That's when it becomes real. And sitting on that porch with his father, in the town he'd left behind, having lost billions, but gained everything, Nate understood at last. He was home, and he was never leaving again.